Hey guys, it's your girl Carrie. Welcome back to my channel. We got a jelly tip showdown today. I've got my IGel Beauty that I've been using here for a few months, and I also picked up the Apres Gel-X tips for a mere curiosity just to see how these two compare to each other. So I'm going to be showing you demos of both. I'll be giving you all the comparisons, all the details, and at the end I will give you a 2-week update on how everything's been going. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then stick around. We're getting into it. Okay guys, so I apologize for the mosaic in the bottom of the screen. My face was reflecting off this black packaging and it was literally driving me bonkers, so sorry. But anyway, yeah, my curiosity was piqued with the Apres tips because they are one of the OGs to jelly tips, if not the first to come out with jelly tips. So if you're like me, you might be wondering, is it worth the extra cost of picking up the Apres? And so I wanted to compare these two to some that I've already been using for a couple months from a beginner's perspective. So that's what I'll be giving you here today. So before we get started, I do have some older sets on here. That's because I did do these videos a little bit out of order. So on my left hand, I have the Southern Posh Nail Dips Coastal Collection. So I have that video linked in the cards for you. And then the right hand is going to be my mani where I tested my CN Designer Dips liquids. So I will also have that video linked for you in the cards if you haven't seen those. So of course we're doing these a little bit out of order because I wanted a couple weeks use of these gel tips to give you a really good update here at the end as to how well these perform for me. So the basis for the comparison are these IGel Beauty Pro Gel tips in medium Coffin. I have been using these for a couple months. I have a pretty good system down with these. So I do have their Pro Gel base is what I use with it, and I find I can usually with fills get anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks out of a single application of tips, which is pretty good. So I do have quite a bit of experience with these already, so I have a pretty good opinion on these. So I felt like they would be a good baseline to compare them to the Apres. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is break down the specifics for you. The IGel Beauty costs $29.99. However, IGel Beauty is almost always running a 60% off sale, which if you use that code will bring them down to $12 a box, which is pretty much a steal for a high quality set of gel tips. So their sizes do run from 0 to 9. And unfortunately, you do not have the availability to buy individual sizes. So if you only need like a size 5, you cannot buy, at least right now, a bag of individual tips just in that size. Now the Apres retail for $27.99. Their price does fluctuate a little bit whether you're buying short, too long. So that's just comparing the medium coffins. They do come in natural and sculpted depending on whether you have more flatter nail beds or more C curve to your nail beds. You can buy individual sizes in these, and the price of those bags range anywhere from $2.99 to $3.39 depending on the size and the length that you need. So however, they don't typically have their products discounted. Occasionally you can find a 10% here or there, but typically you're going to have to pay full price for these. So again, that's about $27.99 per box. Breaking down the packaging here, the IGel Beauty is in the white box, and excuse my sticky note there, that's got my sizes on it. And you've got the individual compartments. Now the Apres is in a little bit sturdier of a box. This box is a little bit more sturdy than the IGel box. It's a little bit more ornate, as you can see here, and it is in the black packaging with the etching on the top. So again, this box is just a little bit sturdier. They're both made out of similar materials, but this one just feeling a little bit more, I guess, high quality as far as the packaging goes. And the same thing, you have the individual compartments on the inside. As you can see, they're pretty much arranged very similarly with the numbers on the lid from 0 to 10, but of course the 10 being blank, and then of course the 000 being blank in the Apres. Taking a look at the actual tips themselves, I pulled out two of similar size here. You can see size, and I'll get them a little closer in a minute, but pretty much the size is about the same. Maybe the Apres are just a hair longer, but really not by much. And you'll see that the IGel Beauty has the etching with the brand and the size on the top. And then the Apres has their little symbol with a number at the bottom of the tip. So slight difference there as far as where the number on the tip occurs. Now, as far as flexibility goes, the IGel, and this is going to be difficult for you to see here, but the IGel is a little bit more flexible than the Apres, which can be a good or bad thing depending. So I do find the thickness of the Apres to be just a little bit more so than the IGel. So the IGel a little bit thinner, a little bit more flexible. And I will get into some pros and cons of both of those here in a little bit. So I'm giving you a side-on view here of the tips because I do want you to see, and I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but the Apres is just a little bit thicker and a little bit more built up than the IGel Beauty. So IGel Beauty being a little bit thinner, and that's the IGel on the left, the Apres on the right. There's some pros and cons to this, which I will get into during the application process. But yeah, you can probably see the C curve on these are pretty similar. The Apres might be a hair curvier, which I found interesting because these are the natural tips. So these are not the more sculpted ones. So I can only imagine how much more curvy those sculpted ones are. Okay, so as you can see, I removed the tips I did have on and kind of filed down the little layer of builder gel I had on my nails, so it was kind of thin, so we could get a nice, you know, kind of starter application here. Now I am going through to see if I can size the Apres tips, and I have a really easy time of sizing the IGel. The Apres took a little bit more work, and the reason I think that is because, again, these have a pretty strong curve from sidewall to sidewall, so I was having trouble getting to them to feel like they were flush to my nail. So there were some that I kind of felt like I could have used, but I ended up sizing up a little bit so that I could thin it out a little bit on the sidewalls to get it to fit a little better. But yeah, I mean, it's not like I couldn't find my size. I just felt like it was a little bit difficult to find the right one given the fact that these tips were a little on the curvier side. If you are somebody with really wide thumbs, neither of these boxes come with a 00, so you may have to look elsewhere to find one that is big enough for your thumbs. I believe I used a 1 in both of these, so I don't feel like I have unusually large thumbs, but I don't think they're really small either. But I find that, you know, it's pretty interesting that in both sets, I'm almost towards the end of what would be available for me just in the thumbs. So just things to keep in mind. Now, one thing I'm not really going to get into here is prepping the tips. So I do have a video where I show you how I did that for the first time, and I have continued to use that process. So if you need to see that video so you can see the entire prep of these tips, I will have that one linked for you in the cards. But with both sets, I did go ahead and make sure to fit them well to the cuticle area, and then I did etch them where they were going to actually attach to my nails so that they would stick a little bit better. So yeah, if you need to see the full explanation on the prep for the tips, then like I said, that will be linked for you in the cards, but I'm not going to show that just to keep this video a little more brief. Okay, so as I said, I've already prepped my nails by cutting down my existing tips and filing down the builder gel layer on my natural nail so it's nice and thin. That way it's not completely starting from scratch, but it's thin enough that we'll get a kind of from scratch application here. So as you saw there, I am using my Triple D cupcake lamp, which is really good for flash curing these tips. And I'm going to be using the IGel Beauty Pro Gel base to apply these tips because, again, I'm making sure to give you a good baseline here to compare them. And that's what I've been using. And I've had really great success with this stuff. I'm talking, you know, 3-4 weeks. In fact, if I keep these tips on 6 weeks, all I'm doing is a fill over top of that. And I have not had any lifting whatsoever with this Pro Gel base. Now I know that that's going to vary widely from person to person, but all I can say is I've had a lot of success with it. So I'm using this because I've already had success with it, and I want to make sure we have a good baseline to compare these tips to each other. So I'm just going to speed this part up. I'm going to quickly apply the IGel tips on the left hand, and then we will get into the Apres. Okay, so while I finish up my pinky here, I'm just going to give you a little thoughts on the IGel application because, again, I've done these before. This is not new to me. So I do find these tips, especially for a beginner, to be extremely easy to apply because they are a little thinner and a little more flexible, which makes them a little bit easier to fit to the nail. So as far as it goes for me, I prefer the thinness and flexibility of these just because I usually do have something over top of them. I mean, occasionally I'll go a day or two without anything over top, but usually I have a little bit of gel or some dip powder, usually dip powder over top. So I already have plenty of strength just from what I'm putting over top. So I prefer something that's a little bit easier to apply because of the thinness and durability. So I really do enjoy these. The only thing I'll say is the thumb, to me, it always just looks a little weird. It's like a little too short or something, I think. But you know, that's just being nitpicky. I really have been enjoying these tips, and I do find them to be very, you know, cost effective considering what you're getting. I just wish they would offer individual sizes in these. I hate having to buy a box every time I need them just because I only use a few sizes out of that box. So now let's get into applying the Apres. So for the Apres, I will be speeding some of it up, but I will leave some of it real time because this is a first impressions of these tips. So I am using the same Pro Gel base again, just so we make this scientific experiment a little bit more real with just the same products, same methods. All we're using is the difference is the tips. So I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I did struggle with these a little bit, and I will get more in depth as to how I struggle with them. But I'm starting here with the thumb. And it took me a minute to kind of get the right amount of base, even though it's the same size tip and everything. I just couldn't quite get the base on there right. But once I finally did, I was able to get it on there without any air bubbles. But let me talk to you about the difficulties I had here. These tips are noticeably a little thicker and a little less flexible than the IGel, which again can be a great thing if you're somebody who's not using a lot of product, or maybe you're only using gel polish. You might prefer these for the strength of them. But the problem with that for me was I find it very difficult to get these flush to the nail. Because they are thicker and less flexible, when you're pressing them down to get a good flush fit to the nail, it just takes a little bit more muscle, and it takes a little bit more messing with it to get it right. So, you know, as far as being a beginner goes, do I think you can use the Apres? Definitely, but just be prepared that you're going to have to take a little bit more time to kind of get them, I guess, filed down to an appropriate thickness, and you're going to have to keep playing with them before you cure them, just to make sure that you've got a nice fit. So, you know, good things and bad things when it comes to the lack of flexibility and the thickness and strength there. That's just going to be really a lot of preference. Something else I noticed about the tips, and you'll see these more in the photos here at the end. I will give you photos and comparisons like side by sides. But the shape of these are a little bit more structured. The sides just to me just look a little bit more straighter and a little bit more structured, which I think makes them look a little bit cleaner, I guess. So I do enjoy the look of these tips. I just wish they were a little bit easier to apply. And especially the thumb, like I love the thumb on this tip. I know you're like, why? What is the deal with the thumb, Carrie? Like, I don't know, just there's something about the way the IGel Beauty thumbs fit. They just look a little awkward on me. I'm not really sure why, but I think it might just be the lack of length. And I find the thumb size that I use on me to be a little bit longer in the Apres. So as I was editing this video, guys, I counted 5 times that I had to reposition this middle nail before I finally cured it. So I kept having to try to get it flush, then I pulled it off, and then I kind of, rearranged it, applied a little bit more gel, and tried it again. It took me 5 tries. And remember, guys, I'm still relatively a beginner to gel tips. I've only been using them for a couple of months. But I do think from a beginner's perspective, if you are one, the things that I have learned about gel tips is it's better for you to take your time on this part and make sure you're 100% happy with the way it's sitting on your nail before you cure it. Because once it's on there, it's not coming off. You're going to have to work to get it off. So, you're going to have to use your e-file. You'll have to use a tip cutter. You may have to soak in acetone, just depending. So it's better that you take your time to get this part right, because once they're on, you may have them on there for 4 to 6 weeks. So you really don't want to be unhappy with the fit and the way they're sitting on the nails. So, it's worth taking your time on this part. But typically with IGel, I can get it on the first or second go before curing. But yeah, that middle finger, I was on the struggle bus with it. Now, I know I'm really not talking you through the application process here. I'm just demoing this for you. So if you need to see the full application process of how I apply my tips, make sure to go check out that video because it not just shows you the first impressions and from a beginner's perspective, but I actually go through my entire application process. So if that's something that you're needing to see, you're needing further explanation on that, then definitely go check out that video. All right, so here's your side-by-side look of the IGel versus the Apres. The IGel is on the left, the Apres is on the right. So you can see, you know, pretty similar look finished. I think you can probably see here though, the difference in the thumbs for sure. The thumb is a little bit longer on the Apres than the IGel. And again, you can probably see with the rest of the nails, the more structured look of the Apres versus the more natural-ish look of the IGel. I say natural-ish because I feel like the thinner, more flexible feel of the IGel makes them look a little bit more like natural nails and the more structured look of the Apres, but that's just my opinion. Now, if you can see the cuticle area here, you can see even after thinning these out and filing them down before application, I still have a pretty large ridge there where the cuticle area is, which I don't really like. So I'm showing them to you here with my builder gel applied over top. I always put a thin layer of it over top so you can just see the finished look. But I will tell you, after I did one mani, I did have to go back and thin out the cuticle area on the Apres to get it more flush. As I just found after that first mani, it just wasn't sitting right. There was too much bulk at the cuticle area with the tip applied. So I had to kind of go through with my file and really thin it out some more and then apply another fresh layer of builder over top to kind of meld everything together. So again, I don't really find I have to do that with the IGel, so there's something to be said for that. The tip is pretty thin at the cuticle area, so I don't really have to put in that extra work. But again, those are just observations I have made for this first application. Now, let me give you my update because I have had these on now for about 3 weeks. I just did my first fill because I had some new nail growth. And I will say that I do feel like the Apres have held their shape really, really well. The IGel has too, but the Apres maybe just a little bit more of an edge there as far as holding its shape. But both can still be used for up to 4 to 6 weeks. And you can always correct a little bit of like changing the shape here or there with some builder gel over top. So, you know, I haven't had issues with either of them lifting. I have not had any breakage or any other problems like that. So I do think they're both great options. So who am I declaring the winner here? I'm still going to have to give it to IGel at this point, though just barely. I'm going to have to mostly give it to IGel on the thinner and easier application as far as just for beginners and also for the price, though I must admit the shape on the Apres is quite beautiful and I do definitely like the thumb on the Apres more than I like the IGel. I may just keep using the thumb on the Apres and do the rest in the IGel, but we'll see. I do think I will continue to use the Apres as well. So, you know, in the future, my opinions on this whole shebang could change. But as far as if you're looking at a beginner trying to try out gel tips, I would suggest you start with the IGel. I think you'll have a much easier time with the application than you will with the Apres. I feel like the Apres is better for somebody who's been using tips for a little while and is looking for something a little more structured or a little bit sturdier. And on that note, even if you are a beginner, you definitely can still use the Apres if you need something that's a lot stronger. I would just say really take your time in the prep and really thin it down at the cuticles so that you don't have that kind of ridge there at the cuticle area where it makes it look like you have false tips on instead of looking like it's a natural nail growth. Overall, I really do think both are great options, and though the price can be a deterrent for somebody who's wanting to try out tips with the Apres, keep in mind that once you find the size you're going to use, they do sell those $3-ish bags of individual sizes. So if you do want to do a refill, at least you will have that option. So I guess to sum it up, I'm going to say that IGel is best for beginners who are looking for a low-cost option to try out gel tips. And I'm going to say Apres is going to be better for somebody who's a little bit more experienced or somebody who needs something that's a little bit stronger and a little bit more structured. So I hope that gives you a pretty good idea of my thoughts here. But as always, guys, if you have any questions or comments or just, more information you're looking for, make sure you drop those in the comments down below because I'd be happy to give you further insight if I've left anything out here. So that is going to complete this video, guys. So I hope you did enjoy it and found it helpful. If you did, it would help me out so much if you would give me a thumbs up down below. And while you're there, if you're not subscribed already, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. And don't forget that notification bell. We got new content coming every Tuesday and Friday at 2 p.m. Central. So as always, guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much. And I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.